My name's Mike Thompson, and I'm the triad coordinator here at the RSVP of Dane County. I'll just take a second here to introduce our special guest, Police Officer Chris Marzullo from the Madison Police Department. Chris works out of the Midtown district here in Madison, basically the near west side, and is the neighborhood resource officer there. I'll let Chris take over from here, tell a little bit about himself, what a neighborhood police officer does, and then get on to the important business of crime prevention and environmental design. Chris, go ahead and take over, please.
Sounds good. Well, good morning, everybody. Good to see some familiar faces here with us. I've worked for the Madison Police Department. I've been here since 2013. I started my career a little later in life at 30. I have two little girls. I shouldn't say little, one's 16 and one's 3. So kind of in our own retrospect, little in my eyes still. I am a neighborhood police officer for the city. I started off my career as a patrol officer. I worked primarily afternoons, but did do a couple stints on the night shift. As you can imagine, nights and kids do not go together because you do not get any sleep when you get home. So that was a little tough. I transitioned into the neighborhood policing role for the Allied Drive neighborhood. And now I am the neighborhood resource officer for the entire Midtown district. The difference between just a patrol officer that takes calls and kind of my role is that I'm not call driven, meaning that dispatch will not generally give me any calls for service that are coming in through the 911 line. My job is to focus primarily more on the more call for service heavy areas and try to find permanent solutions to issues that are arising. That doesn't mean arrest, ticketing. That means actually meeting with people and finding the root cause for the issues, whether that's housing, financial restraints, job restraints, maybe doing some mediation between partners if they're just having issues or disturbances. I get to know the people in the neighborhood. I get to know the resources in the neighborhood. And I get the fun job of getting out of my squad car and just playing with kids, playing basketball, playing Foursquare. Note to mention, I do not let kids win. My kids know that as well. I don't think any of them have beat me in basketball, although the 16-year-old is pretty close. I also am a field training officer for the department. So I train new officers when they get out of the academy. I do occasionally teach in the academy. I'm a mentor for our new recruits. So obviously when you start this job, it's a little stressful trying to navigate not only the job itself, the academy, but then also the stressors at home that come with this job. So they try to pair us up accordingly. Those who have kids, those who are married, so on and so forth, share the same hobbies, interests, so that we can help mentor those new folks. Something I also did, and which is going to be the topic of discussion here, is I am our security assessment, I guess, expert, if you will, for the department. So I've completed numerous certifications, classes, training, and I actually just got back from Florida on Saturday after a week-long 40-hour training involving crime prevention through environmental design, which you'll definitely see some of that within this presentation. So I do quite a bit in the department, but definitely my passion is for the security side of things. I think it's small things that we can all do to help ourselves stay safe within our community, our home, wherever that may be. So it's relevant to all areas of residential housing, whether it be an apartment complex or your house or a community, if you will. So I will attempt to share my screen here. See how that goes. We'll just make sure we have the right one set up here. There we go. Can everyone see that?
Sure, I can, Chris.
Yes.
Outstanding. So actually, so I will admit this is the first time I have to share my screen, so you'll have to bear with me for a moment. Okay. All right, sweet. let's see what we can do here. All right, so the topic we're going to be, or what I was asked to present about, is kind of security assessments and what that kind of all entails. So to give you just a little backstory, this all started for me when the city of Madison had to be part of a grant for the school district here. That grant was for security money, things that would make the surrounding interior and exterior of the school safer for children, and would also make the response from police faster. So we inquisited about some courses that would make me certified in order to be able to provide that information to the school and through the walkthroughs for the school. So we did, in about 2 months, we did 53 schools for MMSD, which was a feat in itself, but we got through it, and through the process, we've kind of learned some commonalities that the school shared that they were able to rectify as far as security stuff goes. We then kind of took it a step forward and created our own security assessment platform, and which for businesses, some homes that were routinely being burglarized, or some areas that were being commonly burglarized, we were able to provide those homeowners and businesses with some helpful tips in order to help them hopefully not get burglarized in the future. So some of this presentation is about 90 or so slides long. I pared it down to some of just the basic fundamentals. So it's about 29 slides. If anyone has any questions about anything, just either feel free to jump in or just hold off till the end and we can retouch on some of these. So what is crime prevention? Crime prevention is an action designed to reduce the actual level of crime and or the perceived fear of crime. You can see on the picture to your left kind of what the building and the surrounding area looks like. And then the picture on the right, with just adding a fence, and I might add that the fence is see-through, which is a huge advantage. You can kind of see what's going on in that area, not only if that's your home that you have to walk through, but also from a police perspective, if we're driving by, we can actually see directly into that alleyway, providing a little extra protection for you and for us to be able to see what's going on. Versus if that fence was a solid fence, you wouldn't be able to see what you were walking into if you had to enter that for your home. And we as police or any bystanders just walking on the sidewalk wouldn't be able to see down that alley. Again, you can see kind of the color change. So adding some murals, adding some artwork, again, warming up that environment. I would say, and hopefully you would agree, that I'd rather walk into the option on the right than the option on the left. It just kind of gives me a better feeling inside. So what are the 4 Ds of crime prevention? It's to deter crime, so deter the criminal act. And how we deter things is by putting systems in place. So a good example of this is I use the schools. The old kind of version of an entryway for school, which I'm sure we are all used to, is just kind of, you would walk in the front doors. Maybe there was a front desk to check in right away, but once you're in this first set of doors, you're able to kind of access the whole building. The new mindset and the new way things are being constructed is that there's what's called a welcome center. So now you walk into the first door and you're kind of trapped between that door and the second door that's electronically locked. And usually the office or the window to the office is right to your right, staffed by a member of the building. So that is a matter of deterring crime. So now you're walking in, you have a staff member right there greeting you. And you're also kind of trapped in between those 2 doors, not being able to access the building. So we're trying to see why you're there and why you're visiting the building. The second is delay the attacker. Nowadays they've come out with screening that you can put over your windows. It's a clear film, sometimes tinted if you wish, but it can actually deter the breakage of a window. And the example that they use is a baseball bat. And this company, 3M, hits the baseball bat with 1 strike with a window that's not covered by this layer of protection. And the window essentially immediately shatters and then breaks, all within a matter of seconds. The second time they hit the window, it does have the film on it, and it actually takes up to about 2 minutes for that person to now break that window and actually get into wherever they're trying to get into. So that's a matter of delay. You hear what's going on, you hear some kind of disturbance, you hear someone trying to break in, but you have that time to react. You have that time to call 911. You have that time to turn on lights and hopefully deter that crime. Denying access to the target. Now we're starting to get into locks and doors. What kind of locks and doors do you have? And again, that will kind of be later on in the presentation. I'll show you some of that, but just trying to deny it, not allowing him access whatsoever to the home, the business, so on and so forth. And the next is detect the act in progress. So that could be an alarm system, a motion detector. If you're not home, you're able to see what's going on. You're able to get a visual alarm or an audio alarm of someone actually breaking into your home or business. So primary components of a security assessment is environmental security. So that's kind of the crime prevention through environmental design. Physical security, again, what do you have in place? Electronical security, so alarms, cameras, and procedural security. Now, I think the last one is overlooked at times. And what I mean by that is we can have an alarm system, but what do we do in the event that the alarm goes off, right? What's the procedure for my home, my business, my children, my family members, if that alarm goes off? And an alarm is no good if you don't have a procedural measure put in place. It's kind of like the fire drills at the school. The reason why we practice those is, right, so that if the alarm goes off, we know what to do. We know that these situations, if someone's trying to get into your home, if there's a fire, right, can be extremely stressful. So the more you practice them, the more you get what's called muscle memory, and your body just responds accordingly. So you don't really have to think, your body just kind of knows what to do because you've trained on it so much. So getting into some of the grading of locks and windows, there's a standard for just about everything. There's an organization that looks at the good, better, best of just about everything. For doors, for locks, it's the ANSI. There's a lighting kind of overseer. There's doors and windows overseer. So there's kind of a committee, if you will, and research out there, a governing body for all the different kind of things in the security world. So one of the things I learned a few years back is there is this grading system, and it's actually on the packages of locks you buy. So grading 3 is kind of the good. It's used for mostly residential. It's usually a lower grade, minimal acceptable quality for residential doors and locks. So these are kind of some of your just basic door or basic locks that you would have kind of on the interior of your home. Maybe they don't lock. Maybe there's some of the older round ones, but they're good, but they don't provide kind of a higher level of security. The next grade is 2, which is better. It's commercial, more heavy residential, highest residential security grade, designed and built to offer excellent security and durability. And it's used for light commercial applications. So now you're starting to get more into your common locks that we now see on newer homes and some of the upgraded schlag locks that you see within your own home. So kind of the deadbolts, the strength of them. That's kind of what we're seeing here. And then you have grade 1, which is the best. It's more of a heavier commercial use. So more of your Morrison locks, where all of the locking mechanism is kind of trapped inside of a metal box inside your door. So it's kind of fitted inside your door. So it makes it very hard to get in. This could be some of your more electronic locks. So more of your newer locks you're seeing with voice commands, your phone, fingerprints, codes. These are more of your grade 1s. So interesting enough, the next time you go to Menards or Farm and Fleet or Home Depot, take a look at the lock section, just look at a package, and you'll notice that it does have these grades on there.
On these locks, Chris, if I could butt in real quick, we were thinking of changing locks on our door, and I was thinking, well, geez, that'd be great to have it connected to my phone app, right? I could check and see when I'm on that trip whether it's locked or not. What do you think of these kind of connected smart lock systems?
You know, I like them. I think there is benefit to them. I mean, my garage door is connected to a kind of my phone itself, so I can see if I've actually closed my garage because I have a little of a OCD and ADD. So a lot of times I leave my house, I get about a block away, and I cannot remember for the life of me if I shut my garage door. Provides me with great anxiety. So then I turn around and sure enough, it's closed. So there are huge benefits to it. You can't lock yourself out. You can see if the lock's disturbed for any reason while you're gone. But I think just like anything else, the kids nowadays are driving around with remotes just programmed to a certain program. They're just driving around literally in areas and hitting the garage door button, seeing if anyone will be the same code as yours. So I think eventually we'll see some of that where individuals are able to use this technology against us and be able to get into our homes. However, most of these electronic locks are definitely secured with good deadbolts. They do have good backup systems, and they do allow you to see if anyone's getting in, right? So plus and minus, if you have a key kind of lock, no alarm system, somebody boots the door, someone's able to get in, you're not going to know, and access is going to be allowed. But if you have one of these electronic locks, a lot of time you have a notification on your app, right, that allows you to know if your door's being opened or if something's going on. So, I mean, there's pluses and minuses with everything. I like them. I would use them on my home. But again, I also am one of those people that always believe in technology as a failure. So I do always have another way into my house just in case it does fail. So my garage door one, in from my garage into my interior of my home does not have one of these, just in case I need to get into my garage and actually get into my house.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah. So strike plates, oddly enough, this is one of those ones that I wholeheartedly believe in. So strike plates replace conventional striker plates. Those are the little tiny, usually silver or gold plates that are in your door when you open it, right? It's where the mechanism slides in and out to allow the door to open. It's usually just to the right of the doorknob on the door frame. A simple fix to that is buying a larger, thicker striker plate and taking the small, very small screws that are inside that striker plate out and placing 3-inch screws in its place. The 3-inch screws allow for the screw to now be mounted usually to the wall frame rather than just the door frame itself. So if you look at a door frame, it's not very thick, and that's all your screws are going into. So when someone tries to kick your door or try to get into your home, that's what's protecting it at that point. That's why sometimes doors are very easy to open or penetrate because there's not much security there. And a simple fix is just taking your screws out and replacing them with longer 3-inch screws so they actually go into the stud themselves. If anyone's ever hung a picture, you know that if you think you know where the stud is and you screw a screw in and you miss the stud, it kind of just falls to the drywall, right? But if we get it into the stud, it's a little harder for that drill to work to actually get that screw in. And that's kind of the same concept here. It's adding strength to the door itself, to the door frame itself, to make it harder to get in. They sell something towards it. Yeah, sorry. They sell something that's called a devil door system. And it's literally just a large plate that you can put in place and screw it in with 3-inch screws. And I will tell you what, it makes it very, very hard to kick the door in. And they're roughly about $20 and super easy to install. You're literally just screwing it in. So this is something I very much believe in. I do also and have also changed all of my hinge screws. So the 3 hinges that are on your doors, I did change those out to 3-inch screws as well in my own house, just for the added protection. So something minuscule and something cheap that you can do is change out your striker plates. Key management. So this is for those of you that own businesses, those of you that have multiple keys, those of you that hand out keys to family members or maybe your neighbor to watch your home. Just know that the keys should be stamped with some kind of identifier, a do not copy. If you're a business, a serial number, and what they mean by that is just a key number so that you can manage and know where these keys are that you handed out. We all know it's pretty easy to go get a key made. However, there are companies out there, and a lot of them, that do abide by the do not copy. If they see that, they usually routinely will not copy the key for somebody. We also talk about, all employees being required to sign out their keys that are issued to them so that they know, here's the contract, I have 2 keys, and if they ever leave the business, that they have 2 keys and that you can get those back from them. It's also not a bad thing that if you have recently purchased a home, that you have the home rekeyed, because you don't know who has keys to that house when you after you purchased it. That doesn't mean that you have to go buy all new locks for your home. You can simply call a company like J&K locally here on Park Street, and they can come out and just pull apart the key assembly with inside that lock, and they can actually rekey it that way. So you don't have to go buy all new locks and doorknobs for your house. But I always say that's a really good idea. Again, you have no idea who has the keys. If you're renting, something I always ask is to the landlord or the management there or the maintenance person, hey, was this rekeyed? Especially if it's access from the outside of the home. So if it's inside of apartment complex, that's a little different. You have some common hallways, right? You have some eyes, natural surveillance that can see people kind of coming and going, and they know who you are for the most part. But if you're living in a condo or a townhouse where your access to your front door is on the outside, there's not as much eyes, there's not as much sense of community there. So I always usually ask if they rekeyed the lock, and if not, I would ask them to do that. Conversely, same with your garage door openers, making sure that if you purchase a new home and you do get garage door openers, that you change the codes to those garage door openers. So that way, if somebody else has another garage door opener, they can't access your home. You can buy duplicate garage door openers at like Menards, Farm and Fleet, that you can use to reprogram those as well, and they're fairly inexpensive. So talking a little bit about doors, hollow core doors. They're mostly used for interior use. They're not weather resistant. They're usually low cost, and they're commonly used for interior needs in the home. They do tend to transmit a lot of sound too, because there's really no barrier in the middle of the door. It's just what it is. It's hollow. These doors are very low on the security scale. They're very easy to get into. They're kind of flimsy. So again, when using these doors, I wouldn't use them for, anything that you really would want to protect. I usually tell people in homes, more of the fiber door or more of the composite doors are better for like a bedroom, just in the event that someone was going to get into your home, it was nighttime, you're in your room sleeping, at least you have that added protection, right, to deter and delay that individual from getting into where you are with a better door. Again, these hollow core doors are common throughout the rest of the home, and there's really no necessity into changing those out. If you were to separate your basement from your home, a lot of people do as far as risk. If you have basement windows downstairs, if you have kind of that entry point with slider doors downstairs, a lot of people will separate the upstairs home from the basement with more of the kind of fiber core doors, just to add again that layer of protection. If someone was to get in downstairs, it would take them a while to be able to get upstairs to where your normal function of your home is. So this is one of the better doors, more common. It's a solid core door. Instead of having nothing in the middle, it does have kind of the honeycomb design inside the door that adds strength, and then more of the fiber core or sawdust material on the inside of the door. So again, it's better for sound transmission. It's going to be thicker than the hollow core doors, and it's going to provide you more protection than the hollow core doors will. So a lot of people now have newer construction, most of your doors inside your home. So again, the bathroom doors and kind of those laundry rooms are going to be more of the solid core. And the option is usually there to do that. Steel or metal doors, definitely more sturdy. They're low maintenance. They're kind of the leading choice amongst exterior doors, and that's because of their strength, their versatility with weather, and can include insulation foam for the core itself, so inside of the door. So again, talking about that door that leads from your garage door or from your garage outside, commonly we see those doors as being entry points for burglars. A lot of people will switch those doors off to more of a steel or metal door. And again, that's for protection. I can tell you, as a police officer trying to get into a home that has a metal door or a steel door, is a lot harder, and it takes a lot of kicks, if you will, to try to get into that door. So again, when we talk about deterring and delaying crime, for your exterior doors, a steel or a metal door is definitely one of the ways to go. Fiberglass doors, these are probably the most popular. The reason for that is it really mixes the security in with the aesthetics. So this door is way more aesthetically pleasing than a metal door. You can see there it's wood on the outside. It has a stain, so you can many different colors, but the protection is there. So it's going to be the same amount of time to try to get into this door as it is a metal door. These are definitely a little more expensive. And again, anytime we're starting to talk about aesthetics, right, things get more expensive. They're more energy efficient. They're durable, variety of finishes, well suited, for harsh climates, and requires little to no maintenance over the life. And that's because the outside is kind of made of that composite material. So it's really resistant to fading or any kind of weather itself. So number one suggestion, definitely when you're talking about exterior doors, is going to be the fiberglass doors themselves. So kind of moving on a little bit to security alarms. Most people think, hey, I'm going to get a security alarm and I should be good to go. There's definitely some things to consider when you go to having a security alarm installed. One of those things is who will be performing the installation and monitoring the system. So it's one thing to have a security system, but it's another thing to ask who is monitoring it, right? It's kind of like the false cameras at the grocery store. They're good maybe in deterring some crime, but at the end of the day, if crime does happen, now they're kind of useless, right? Because they're not actually functioning. And it's the same as your security alarm. If your security alarm goes off and nobody's there to hear it, you're not there, your neighbors don't hear it, well, what kind of good is it doing? It may deter the criminal and have him leave or her leave. But having that monitoring center that when the alarm goes off, they're calling police and now police are coming, it's going to be a more efficient route, because even if that criminal does leave and they're leaving on foot mostly, that gives us at least the time to try to find that person within the area. Also, who's going to perform the installation? Have you done a background check on this individual? A lot of scams we see are companies such as construction companies, right? Alarm companies. They're kind of fly by night, if you will, companies that come in and they provide you a service, what seems to be a cheap service, but then they're not really doing anything else as far as monitoring it or providing you any updates. You can barely get a hold of the company. So I always suggest that if you're going to do something construction wise, security wise, make sure you're backgrounding these companies. Make sure you're getting 3 different bids, right? Make sure you're talking to 3 different companies to ensure that what you're getting is apples to apples, if you will, right? Always try to go local when you can, right? So reputable local company that or that you could drive to their business if you have an issue, versus some of these fly by night people. The other thing we talk about with security alarms is, security has come a long way. Now you don't necessarily have to go to ADT or one of those bigger companies to get an alarm system. You now can go to Costco and buy the Google alarm system. You can buy the Nest alarm system. This allows you to not only set up, if you wish, a monitoring system within that will, again, send alerts to police if your alarm goes off, but you have a handheld device with you essentially 24 hours a day called a phone that will always monitor the system, right? Because you always have that phone and you're always monitoring that system. So if something was to happen, you'd be able to see who was in your home. You'd be able to know that something was going on and be able to react appropriately. They're usually about low cost. So, for $400 versus, thousands with an alarm company, you can get a monitoring system that includes a motion detection, the keypad, door sensors, window sensors. So they're relatively inexpensive compared to actually hiring a company. And I think for what they do, they are phenomenal. I have them in my home and have recommended them to multiple people, and they're super easy to set up. So something to consider. Sensors, so motion device detection sensors that flood a specific area with an electronic field. So essentially it's a fancy way of saying that if you walk in front of the sensor's view, it's going to go off. One of the things with sensors that we commonly see is if you have pets, sometimes when you leave, your pets will set the alarms off a lot. So we go to a lot of those type calls. The other thing is just maintenance with the motion detectors. So like anything else, right, electronical, there's maintenance. And with the sensors, it's just making sure you're cleaning them on a routine basis. So making sure that cobwebs aren't getting in front of them, make sure that the lens is clear of any debris, and then also testing them occasionally. So I usually routinely test mine about once a month just to make sure it's functioning properly. The other thing about a motion sensor is just making sure when you place it in the area you place it in, that it's actually capturing the area you want it to. So if you just place a motion detector in your bedroom, right, until someone walks into your bedroom, that's the only time it's going to go off. Versus placing it maybe in your living room where you share common entry doors. Maybe it's a patio slider with your garage door and your front door is kind of all in that same area. We'll place it more in that common area so that if someone enters those spots, it's going to go off and it's going to, again, delay, hopefully, right? It's going to give you time to respond if you're in your back bedroom, and it may also deter that initial crime. If they get in, but the alarm goes off, they might eventually run. Glass break detectors. Again, these are just kind of an acoustic device. They're usually mounted near glass panels. And in the event that someone was to break the glass, the alarm would go off. So if you think about it this way, it's just like a motion detector, only for glass. And instead of seeing movement, it's just an audio. So it's listening for that glass to break. These are very good in downstairs basement windows where you're not often are. Kind of some of those smaller pane windows that someone can kind of fit through. If your basement's not finished, it's just kind of an area, maybe your laundry's downstairs. It's not an area you're often in. It's usually a little darker. Those are spots that burglars will potentially try to get in. The glass break sensors are good to have. And these are examples of some glass break sensors. So the one on the left, the square one, is more of a mounted one. So it's going to mount kind of near the glass. And the circle one is, if you think of it more of like a smoke detector, it covers kind of a larger range or larger area. So my favorite topic, security lighting. Use of lighting in security. So what does it do? It deters illegal behavior and criminal activity, encourages law-abiding behavior, or like we usually say, normal users. And then it promotes the use of space. So when we talk about lighting, you can see the picture on your right-hand side of your screen. The bottom half of that, I don't think any of us would like to walk down that path at night. It's very uninviting. There's a lot of ambush points. It just doesn't feel welcoming, right? Our body kind of tells us, this is kind of creepy. Now the top half is the path well lit. Again, more inviting, more natural surveillance, right? So if you're on that path and something was to happen, someone could actually see you, right? And maybe call for help and help you. So we talk about it increasing natural surveillance, but what is natural surveillance, right? Natural surveillance just means people being able to observe the area. So when we talk about building new apartment complexes, what we like to see is apartment complexes with lots of windows. And lots of windows facing the courtyard, lots of windows facing the back area, lots of windows facing the main entry. Again, talking about that natural surveillance, people, if a criminal comes up to a home or a building with not lots of windows, right, usually the backside or the side of a building, right, that's kind of going to be one of those areas they want to try to enter or try to spray graffiti or so on and so forth. And why is that? Is because anonymity. They don't believe that anyone's there to see them, right? Now you flood a building with windows, there may not always be a person in that window, but it's going to make a person think twice to go near that property because of the thought of being seen. So again, kind of same here, the lighting here helps that natural surveillance of being seen. It supports and enhances camera systems. So again, a lot of our cameras have infrared technology where when it turns to dusk or dark, the lights kind of click on the infrared and that makes the picture quality a little bit better at night. But again, you're normally going to get just kind of a black and white picture unless it's illuminated better. and increases patrol effectiveness. Again, it's going back to the original slide and talking about the see-through fences. When we're patrolling an area, if it's well lit, we can kind of look and see what's going on. Versus if it's dark, we really have to get out, walk around to kind of get a better picture or sense of what's going on. Again, it helps our response times as well when we can see an area. So if we get a call for a park that's well lit, we're going to be able to delineate where the issue is very quickly just by being able to see. Versus if it's dark, it's going to take us a lot longer time to kind of pinpoint where the problem is. You could see here again, the picture on the left, very dark. Again, doesn't give us a warm, fuzzy feeling. It might be a little challenging walking to that car. We don't know who's around or what is around. And again, if I was a burglar, the one on the left would be the one I would choose to burglarize. Again, kind of dark, being able to hide in those shadows, if you will. Picture on the right, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You know, it's very bright, it's very warm. I would feel safer around this building. One thing I'd like to mention about the picture on the right is, although there's a lot of lighting kind of directly in front of the building and around the building, you can see right past the perimeter fence, there is no lighting. So again, we'd like to see those areas included, uniformity and lighting. So we'd like to see those areas lit up as well, because I'm assuming there's maybe a parking lot there. So we'd like to see that better lit as well. So some options for lighting. On the far right is what's called bollard lighting, and those are used for pathways, right? They're kind of at that pedestrian scale. They're at the height of a pedestrian. So they're illuminating kind of that sidewalk area. The bottom picture on the left, the LED parking lights, those are what we call full cutoff lights. So they're directing the light straight down onto the parking lot in more of a uniformed kind of pattern. Some of the older lights we see now, and you can kind of see them in our street lights, they use metal halogen lights. And those are great lights. The problem with the fixtures is that they kind of cast light all over the place. So the lighting kind of gets lost in its lumens when it's kind of directed to the right, left, up, and down. Versus the new full cutoff light standards that we're kind of seeing in most parking lots now, and LED, are directing the light straight down. So you're getting more of a uniform look, and the light that's being emitted is actually doing its job instead of being spread out all over. The picture in the middle is just a regular old floodlight. Those are great. Again, they kind of have the shields over top to kind of direct the light where we want it to go versus wasting it going in the air or going to the side. You can also see in the middle, there's a little circle in that square rectangular piece, and that's going to be a camera. So again, Nest, Google systems, alarm systems also have lighting cameras, spotlights. They mount just like any other lighting fixture on the outside of your home. Only they give you the added protection of a camera. And they're actually really, really good. They can get annoying a little bit if you don't kind of hone in on the distance you want them to be, especially if they're facing a road. They might go off quite a bit, so you got to kind of tailor them back a little bit. But again, very easy to use as far as, you know, being able to go on your phone, and the app is very friendly and very easy to navigate. And then the picture on the left, top left, I did put that on there. That's kind of some of the old school lighting. We still see it. But the theory behind that, again, is the bulbs are facing up. So when the light is turned on, the lighting from that bulb is going to go up into the fixture and then kind of be casted out, right? Cast it out to the right, cast it out to the left, and then directed down as well. Again, we're wasting a lot of what the light is supposed to do and the wattage of the light when it gets casted out like that. So even though you may be getting a little more projection to the left and right, the amount of lighting you're getting is still not great. So we like to see that bottom left picture, the full cutoffs, where there's no shields, the light is being directed straight downwards. So CPTED, crime prevention through environmental design. I had a lot of training on this, but I just got 40 hours of training on this in Florida. I'm a huge component and believer in the crime prevention through environmental design. For two reasons. One, it's very low cost. And two, the principles behind it are very effective. And I think CPTED sums it up with these two pictures very clearly. The house on the left, right, is the before picture. You can see that the bushes are overgrown. Things kind of look unkept, right? There's no lighting there. The grass isn't cut. Almost looks like the home is abandoned, right? And so the picture on the right is the after. And what these individuals did is they painted the pillars and the door, right? Fresh coat of paint, maybe $20, right, for a gallon of paint. They trimmed the bushes back. We like to say the 2 foot, 6 foot rule. So bushes and vegetation shouldn't be more than 2 feet high to eliminate individuals hiding in that area. And then trees should be trimmed at least 6 feet high, again, for natural surveillance, people being able to see through that vegetation. And they also added a light there on the right-hand side. So when you're driving through a neighborhood, the perception of the house on the left is going to be unkept, is going to be maybe uninviting. It's going to kind of scream, hey, this is a place to go. The house on the right, the windows are now unobstructed, right? Again, so natural surveillance, people are being able to look out of those windows, and the house looks well maintained and well kept, ownership of property. So those are huge deterrents in crime. And again, relatively inexpensive, right? $20 for the gallon of paint. And if you own hedge trimmers, you can trim the bushes back free of cost for yourself. So when we talk about landscape, softscape, terminology includes trees, shrubs, bushes, grasses, and other vegetation. So that's kind of a softscape. So if you look at that picture, you can see that, you know, the trees are trimmed up. You can see clearly through. If you're on that path, you can see quite a bit of distance from the left of you to the right of you. There's no real vegetation or bushes very close to the path. So the comfortability of walking on that path for you would be great, because you wouldn't have to be afraid of someone kind of hiding there, waiting. When we talk about hardscapes, that's including now streets and walkways, pavements, walls, fences, raised planters, water features, kind of those permanent fixtures, if you will. Some of the things we talk about in CPTED, or crime prevention through environmental design, is kind of transition zones, right? To let people know, okay, you're going from a public sidewalk to now a private home residence, right? Ownership. So being able to delineate that, how do you do that, right? How do you say, oh, you're off the sidewalk and now you're on my property? Well, you can do that with barriers, right? So a retention wall. You can do that with different colored sidewalks. So you can change your sidewalk to maybe the stamped concrete or the brick pavers. You can add a feature on your home, right? Such as a little fountain, right? Again, showing ownership. Planter boxes, right? So mulched areas, well-maintained areas, all signs that you've now transitioned from a city sidewalk or a public area to now a more private area. CPTED, by describing the type, height, and placement of plant growth in relation to walkways, parking lots, building entrances, and windows, the capacity for visual surveillance is increased and the potential for crime activity is decreased. So again, going back to that picture of the home, and there'll be another one coming up here. But again, just in comparison to the left and right picture, right, it's more open and inviting when things are taken care of. We also have to think about, and I'm a huge culprit of this, I go to the gardening store and I love the way a plant looks, but I'm not knowledgeable enough to know that that plant's going to grow 10 feet high and 12 feet wide. You know, kind of now not doing or not suiting its purpose that I really wanted to, right? I want the look, I want the aesthetics of that plant, but I definitely don't want the overgrowth that comes with it. So just doing a little deeper dive when you're buying plants to know exactly the height and the width that the plant's going to grow is a huge plus for the security part of your home. The other thing is, you know, don't be afraid to use rose bushes and kind of hostile vegetation, if you will, that's going to cause those pricks or those owls for individuals if they try to get through it. You know, using those underneath windows is a good deterrent for crime. Also using those if you're having issues with individuals using your grass or areas of your exterior that they're just kind of cutting through. um, make a planter area with some rose bushes and stuff, and I guarantee you that individuals are not going to want to walk through that anymore.
Chris, to what degree do you think landscapers are aware of these principles and bring them into their consultations when people ask for a landscaping plan?
Yeah, so interesting you bring that up. So when I was down in Florida, Tampa Bay is really kind of involving themselves in the criminal in CPTED, criminal prevention through environmental design. They're one of the cities that are really moving forward and really using this as a catalyst for crime prevention. So there's a lot of things out there for defunding the police, less police, more community involvement. This is one of those tools that actually could fit into that toolbox, if you will. Tampa Bay has taken it a step further, and where they've made ordinances and where any design plan or building plan that is brought forth to their committee, a person who's qualified in CPTED has to take a look at those plans and be able to make suggestions to the architect, to the landscaper, to the construction worker for parking lots and lighting, to be able to have the CPTED principles put in place. And what they're finding is the more that they're having these CPTED principles put in place, the less they're seeing areas targeted, the more their city is visited by tourists because it looks aesthetically pleasing as well. So as far as how much landscapers and such are kind of involved in this, unless you've really taken a training in it or kind of looked into it, this is kind of a new territory, a new area. But unfortunately, and the good thing for us is there's a lot of research that has been done to back this up. And this actually started in 1971, these principles. And so they're definitely making headway. There's definitely ordinances and stuff that are being put in place to kind of help with that. There's also areas of the city where we can do overlay mapping. So if we're having an area that's seeing a lot of crime, we can actually put that into an overlay district and then say any improvements, any construction that goes on, instead of it being a suggestion, you shall comply with the CPTED principles. And a lot of cities are doing that now, and they're seeing huge dip in criminal activity in the areas that they've done this.
Do you find that in not with respect to Shrubbery, but in some areas of Madison, you see abandoned cars. They're just parked everywhere. Do you think that building inspection works with police to try and bring clean up the neighborhood kind of approach to make it look like it's, less friendly to victimizers?
Yeah, and working with building inspection is great, and they're a great resource for us, and they're a good partnership. One of the things for building inspection is they have to be called in by police to actually take a look at a property. So kind of getting to a bigger, being able to have a bigger reach with CPTED is definitely putting in those ordinances from a city level, council level. Because then anything new coming in has to have these principles behind it. And any areas that we're seeing as a high crime area, we can put overlay districts in, and we can actually make the changes and tell them, hey, business owners, you're now in an overlay district. We need you to adhere by these CPTED principles. So I think that would reach a bigger scope of people and start making a bigger impact quicker. But yeah, right now we can suggest and make those suggestions, but it's ultimately up to the business whether they're going to comply or not. There's no real recourse if they don't. Building inspection can come in, and if it's a safety hazard, and I've done this before where I go to properties and the sidewalks are all busted up, front doors are rusted out, there's holes in the soffit, and then I bring that to the building inspection's attention, then they go, they do an inspection themselves, they generate a report, and they tell the owner, you have X amount of time to correct these, otherwise you can be fined. So, I think there's a difference in which we're telling someone to do something versus we're providing evidential value and research that goes along with this to kind of get more of a buy-in from the city. And again, Tampa Bay is a prime example of this and what they've done. And if you look at the before and after pictures of some of their areas, it's just amazing on what they've done and how welcoming they've made their city. one of the biggest things that I liked coming out of COVID is that we've gave more outdoor seating to State Street, right? So we've made State Street more of a natural surveillance just by simply allowing businesses to put tables and chairs out on the sidewalk and serve their guests outside. And that little bit of natural surveillance has allowed the businesses to not only have more business, right, during the COVID era, but it's more of a welcoming spot for guests in the summer. Like, who doesn't like to eat outside? And then again, we're getting that natural surveillance from people. So if something happens in that area, you just have way more eyes that are seeing things, helping deter that crime, or even giving us, better descriptions of individuals or what happened. So there's a lot of good things that come out of this, that I think our city in general could really benefit from if they bought into it.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem. So you see here on the left, kind of some overgrown shrubbery, and then you see on the right, kind of what that shrubbery looks like with cars and parking lots. So if you're walking out of your apartment, condominium, you had shared parking of any nature, how comfortable would you feel at night, specifically, walking out to your car? I would imagine I would not feel very safe walking to my car with the picture on the right. Again, you're kind of enclosed. There's a lot of ambush areas where people could just do ill will. And it leaves a lot of criminal activity there. If I was somebody right now with the big car shopping craze we have and auto thefts, you can literally probably walk along the front side of those cars all the way down and never be seen as you're checking the car doors. There's also no lighting there. So again, I imagine it'd be very, very dark. And even if there was lighting there, the vegetation would be obstructing that lighting from actually getting down to the areas we wanted to cover. So again, a simple fix here, right? Trim the bushes back. Trim the bushes back or get rid of them altogether, and plant new items that would adhere to the 2-foot, 6-foot rule. So again, very simple, right? Not costing a lot of money if we're just pruning those back, and even plantings nowadays, aren't that expensive. Here's a prime example of a parking lot that is well lit, right? Uniformity in lighting. And what we mean by that is we don't see a whole lot of shadowing or dark areas, right? It's lit, uniformed across. You can see from where the vantage point is, you can see clear across the parking lot and see what's going on in the parking lot. If you look at the vegetation along the median there, again, lower, right? Mostly grasses. So lower, well trimmed. I'd feel a lot more comfortable in this parking lot, right, than a parking lot like we just saw on the last slide. So again, simple changes. Again, prior to the building coming into play, these would be suggestions we would make to the architect, the designer, in order to get this kind of look more uniformed across strip malls, across apartment complexes. And you can see where this would deter crime. I wouldn't want to be in this area doing anything because it is so well lit, because everything is trimmed, because you could see clear across the parking lot. So again, for a natural surveillance point of view, I can see what's going on in this parking lot. So a 6-foot rule of trees, again, trees should just be trimmed up 6 feet so you can see underneath the trees and what's going on beyond them. If trees are next to your home, they shouldn't be able to be used as a climbing aid, right? To get up to a 2nd floor balcony, if you will, or the roof of your home, or so on and so forth. They should definitely be trimmed so that is not allowed. Landscaping. So avoiding large rocks, right? Avoiding river rock, which is kind of the medium-sized rock, right? The thought behind that is, if a burglar comes to your home, we're now giving them a tool in order to get into your home, right? They don't have to bring anything with them. They have rock right there that they can just smash a window out with. Using smaller rocks like gravel rock under windows and near entryways. Again, somebody steps on that smaller pebbled rock, it's going to make noise, right? It's going to alert maybe the neighbor that's out in the backyard to be like, what's going on over there? Or it's going to alert you as well to what's going on. So being able to use the landscape to our advantage, but still make it aesthetically pleasing, right? Because river rock versus gravel rock, you can get it all in the same color. It's just a little smaller variation, right? It's a smaller size. But again, you can see where that smaller size is a plus and a minus for us. Here's my favorite picture. So landscaping can be used to define property or border boundaries. We talk about transition areas, so transition from public to semi-public to private. I think you can clearly define here what is the owner of the home, right? Where that area is, what's owned by a private entity, the homeowner in this case, versus what's owned by the public or the sidewalk. So there should be no excuse that an individual tramples onto your stairway there. There's no real reason or clarity there on, no, this is private. And it's private, it's not public, and you should know that. So again, using landscaping. This is kind of one of those dramatic views. Again, I think, the retaining wall, the planters, that would cost a small fortune, although it looks very nice. I would love it because I wouldn't have to mow so much grass. But again, you can do something similar to this, just in a smaller scale to kind of define the area. A lot of cities have moved towards putting ordinances that when you build a home, it has to have a front porch. The reason for that, again, is natural surveillance, right? Being able to utilize that porch to have breakfast, to sit out with your guests, visitors, or just to enjoy reading a book, right? But again, that promotes the outside use, which again promotes the eyes kind of in that community, right? More people outside, more people sitting on their front porches are going to deter the crime. They're going to be able to know what's going on. So another thing I wanted to kind of get on topic with you guys is kind of the scams we're seeing. So some of the scams we're seeing is someone's calling saying that they're in jail and they need you to pay their bail, whether it's a grandson, sibling, family member, so on and so forth. Just know that if somebody does call you, right, and they say, hey, I'm in jail, or hey, there's a warrant out for your arrest, you need to pay this, please hang up the phone. Please call that jurisdiction. So if they identify themselves as a Madison police officer, and even if they say, hey, this is Officer Marzullo with the Madison Police Department, and you're like, oh, I know Officer Marzullo, still hang up, still call the police department and verify that that is indeed the case, right? Because it's very easy to get names of a police department staff. You can just go on the Midtown Police website and you'll find my name, my picture right there on the front of the Midtown district page as the neighborhood resource officer. So it's not very hard for them to get a name. So always double check. Don't just assume that the information you're receiving is correct. And we're gonna take no offense to you hanging up on us to say, hey, I'm gonna call your department to make sure that you are who you say you are, and this is actually what's going on, right? Don't have them provide you with a number. Simply look it up, right? If you're not sure of the exact district, then call non-emergency, right? Wherever you may be, and say, hey, I just got this call. I need to be connected to an officer. And then you can entrust that the dispatcher is actually providing you with a real officer that can provide you the real information. The other scams we're seeing is you owe money to the IRS. This is especially timely since it's tax season. Again, same advice. Hang up on them. Hang up and call your local office. And get the best possible information you can before providing any kind of monetary money or anything of that nature to someone over the phone. Anyone trying to get you to buy gift cards or any kind of Apple iTunes cards or anything of that sort is a scam. So it's not normal, right, for me to go to a business and they say, hey, the cost of this item is $10. And then I pick up a bunch of gift cards, buy the gift cards, and then give them the gift cards, right? We just don't do that. We provide them with cash, right? What these individuals are really doing is they're making you go out and buy gift cards, and then they're making you give them the numbers on the back of the gift card so they can use them for online purchases without being traced. So anything with gift cards is a scam. Just hang up right away on them. Below the highlighted in red, internet search is for AARP. I find this website to be very, very good. It is updated regularly and it gives some of the more common scams that are currently happening. So it'll give you the older scams as well, but it always updates to the most common scams that are going on, more or less kind of the top 5 that are going on currently. So you can be aware that if you get a call like that or somebody shows up at your door, that it is generally not legit. In the bottom internet slide is going to be the us.gov slide, and that is to report any scams that you may have received or that you believe are individuals calling to scam you. So even if somebody, if somebody calls and they're trying to scam you and you feel like you have the time, and sometimes I do this maybe just for fun and to annoy the other person on the line, but I'll get as much information as I can and act like I'm playing along. So I'll be like, oh yeah, what's your phone number? I can call you back. Okay, yeah, where do you want me to send this to? Okay, all right, I'll call you back. And that way I can go on to the scam website and I can provide those phone numbers or the information they provided to hopefully help others in the event that these individuals are trying to scam them as well. But the biggest tip is, when in doubt, please get a hold of your local police department. Please get a hold of the local IRS if that's what it is, and verify what these people are asking you to do. Because we have a case right now where an individual is being, scammed out of $10,000, believing that he is providing cell phones to orphanages out in Africa. And in reality, he's just being scammed. And he's provided them pictures of his ID and social security card. These are all big no-nos. So please protect yourself. If it doesn't feel right or it sounds too good to be true, please do the work to double check. And we're always here as a police department to help you with that. And that is the end of my presentation.
Chris, Amy Scar works with the Dane County victim, as a victim's advocate. I just brought up the point about Publishers Clearinghouse scams in the east part of the county. What have you guys come up with, and can you talk about that? And Amy, we'd love to have you jump in and tell us what's going on. Please unmute yourself.
The reason I mention it is because it's essentially going through every community in Dane County right now, and it's an identity scam in the middle of an imposter scam. So as the officer pointed out, these scams are ever evolving. They're becoming more complex, and they're harder for people to figure out, because this Publishers Clearinghouse scammer has stolen the identity of someone who actually works at Publishers Clearinghouse. So when you go to Publishers Clearinghouse, there is a person by this name working there. I mean, you kind of have to get into, do a deeper dive into the Google stuff, but you'll find him, Tom Sloan, and you'll find him, and he does work. And what they're really wanting you to do is send cash so that you can pay the insurance on the money on your winnings so that they can send them to you. So, and we've had quite a few victims.
Yeah, and we would all like to win, right? I would love to win the lottery and Publishers Clearinghouse and get $20,000 a month for life, and but we all kind of know the reality of that probably not happening, right?
Yeah.
As much as we hope and wish and pick our favorite numbers for the lottery, it doesn't tend to pan out, at least for me. I have met individuals that have won the lottery twice when I worked in a retirement community for 10 years. I wish I was that person, but so, biggest thing here, and I think Amy hit it on it pretty good, is, these individuals are looking for cash. They're looking to get your identity for cash purposes, right? It's all about the money. So when you're using websites, don't use websites that aren't trusted. Don't use websites that, you ask a question or looking for information, all of a sudden a pop-up box comes on, and now they're asking you to input your email, and they're asking you to input, your name and maybe a credit card. Oh, but it's not going to be charged. But to view the website, you have to have a credit card, right? Yeah. Getting into somebody's email, believe it or not, is probably the easiest way to steal their identity.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to hack people's emails. It's very easy to hack their Facebook or social media platforms. And again, the motivation is to be able to get money from you, right? To be able to find out enough about you to maybe open up an account in your name or so on and so forth. So, checking your credit regularly, is a good thing. Use the free credit check once a year, to be able to make sure that people aren't using your identity, and it's free. We get to do it once a year. Signing sometimes up more. Oh, go ahead, Amy.
So sometimes more often. It depends on if you have an agreement with your credit with the credit bureaus. Sometimes you can get a free one every quarter.
Yeah.
Until the end of April, you can get a free one every week.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
for those of you that are worried about, hey, my credit score's going to be checked, it's going to kind of dig me. That's not the case. I
Right.
actually sign up for protection for my entire family. And that just essentially what it does is if anything's opened up in my name, my daughter's name, it'll send me an alert, and it'll just simply be like, hey, do you know about this? Did you open it up? Right. Getting ahead of the game. And that way it's not consistently checking my credit, right? But it's giving me the alerts that I want. I want to know when someone opens up an account in my name or my children's name. So that's a good way of protecting yourself. Again, sometimes it costs a little bit to have that protection, but I can tell you from hearing horror stories from victims, being able to reverse some of those things is years and years and years, and you are out the money. Don't use your debit card for things. I always say, use your credit card, because at the end of the day, if somebody overcharges your credit card by your limit, that's not money that's yours sitting in your bank account, right? And you can refute those charges, and you can refuse to pay them from the credit card, and you can dispute those as long as you need to, and you're not out any money. Where we see the problem is people use their debit card online, people use their debit card at the pumps, right? We all know about the scamming that was happening at the pumps, where they were putting in scanner devices, and every time you swiped your card, it was stealing your information. And that's still happening, right? There's the gas people in the gas world are trying to do better things. But I always tell people, as a kid, I was never surprised on Christmas. And that was because my mom would gift wrap, and she would think she did a wonderful job. And I would take the little corners of tape and I would peel them back, and I'd be able to see what's in it. I'd be able to put the tape right back on, and she would never know. It's the same thing at the gas pump. They're fixing the problem by putting pieces of tape on those boxes. Well, we all know we can kind of get the same tape. We can kind of cut that tape a little bit, and we're in a big hurry, right? Most of the time getting gas, or we live in Wisconsin, it's freezing. Who wants to be out of their car for longer than they need to, right? So we slide that card and off we go, and we didn't realize that that's been tampered with again. So use your credit cards more often than not. It's a better way to protect yourself and be able to dispute any charges. Routinely check your bank accounts, right? Know the money you have in there, know what's coming out and what shouldn't be coming out. Because a lot of times scammers you'll see it on your bank account. Well, hopefully you won't see it, but if they do it, they're going to do like a 47-cent charge or dollar charge, something obscure. And if you let that happen month after month, eventually they're going to pull money out, because they're going to go, well, you're not paying attention to your account. You're going to be an easy person to start ciphering bigger amounts from. So pay attention to your accounts, right? Know what money you have in there, know what bills you're paying. And if you're ever in question about what something is, and I'll tell you right now, I look at my account every month, and sometimes the description I get, I'm like, I don't remember that. And so I'll call my bank and actually have them help me, and they'll be like, oh, that's Quick Trip, but it's just under a different name. Oh, okay. Yep, I was at Quick Trip. Yep, I relatively spend that amount. So just keep a watch on your accounts.
Chris, I wanted to introduce just for a second Lisa Klepek from the Oak Creek Police Department. Let her have a couple of words on what's going on over there.
Hi, everyone. So I just want to mention our detectives have been seeing a lot of issues with stolen checks. We've actually had stolen checks taken from mailboxes. We've had several here in Oak Creek, but my understanding it's also occurred in West Dallas, Wauwatosa, Waukesha. So what they're doing is they're stealing the checks, they're altering them, I guess, washing them, and then resubmitting them mobily for deposit. We've had a lot of people coming in with that. So I'm just actually about to issue something on our Facebook page, just letting people know about it, just telling them kind of like Chris was saying, just keeping an eye on your accounts, just making sure that, if you're writing checks, one of the things that we're trying to encourage people to do is really to make sure that when they're depositing or mailing checks, that they take them into the post office rather than just putting them in the exterior boxes. And then we're also really trying to encourage people to actually try and switch some of their banking to electronic. Unfortunately, I think with some people, it's just, they're just not comfortable doing that. But we are trying to encourage people to do that just for safety, to try and avoid some of the issues that we see with fraud with checks. So I'm not sure, if other people are seeing it, but we are definitely having an issue with it here in Oak Creek.
Yeah, and if I may piggyback off that, something about checking your accounts routinely, when people use your credit cards, when they use your checks, if you will, a lot of these stores only have kind of a 2-week limit on their recording systems. And so a lot of times after 2 weeks, the video will just start overriding itself, right? New video will take the place of the old. And so when we're not afforded the opportunity to investigate in a quicker manner, so when it's a month or 2 months out and you're like, oh, well, something's going on with my account, I'm going to check, and then you tell the police, we may be able to see that they used the check at Walmart per se. Walmart has a lot of video, but by then the video is gone, and our leads are very minimal at that point. Also, another thing to think about is the banks are very reluctant to offer information to the police without search warrants. So again, that's taking a lot of time in order for us to get kind of any camera footage. So anything you can do on the front end would be helpful. So if you can contact the bank and you can say, hey, where was this used? What time was this used? What store location? And be able to provide us that information, that is extremely helpful. Because again, the bank wants to protect your rights, right? They don't want to be giving out any information that they shouldn't be, which as a person that uses a bank, I love that. But as a police officer, that hurts us in our investigations because it just takes that much longer. So again, emphasizing checking your accounts routinely is a huge help.
Got some questions on CPTED, anyone? I know we have one landscape architect among us. Paul Skidmore, would you care to say a little bit about some of your work with landscaping and CPTED?
Thanks, Mike, and thanks for putting this on. Great job, by the way. I really enjoyed the presentation. A little history. In addition to some of the things that you're probably familiar that I do, I'm also a licensed landscape architect. I've been doing this my entire life and been active in our professional association, and I've been studying CPTED since the 70s, pretty much, and incorporating it into landscape design and landscape architecture. And I've worked with a couple people you might remember. In 2010, I chaired a panel on CPTED, which had a number of people from engineering and one of the Dexheimers, who is a safety expert back in the day. And we talked about some of the issues going on at Olin Park. And then in 2015, with Rodney Wilson and some more engineers, we talked about designing public spaces to make them safe. There's a lot that you could go into in detail about how to make spaces safer. Hedges are bad in public spaces. People can hide behind them. And there's a lot of concepts you can do to make things safer, like put your playgrounds closer to the road, put the shelters closer to the road, make them easy to have access with a squad car so you can get there quickly. There's a number of parks that we have in Madison that are pretty bad, and I think you know how they are. So this is very important, and there's a lot of very simple things people can do to make their home environment safer by through lighting, keeping the shrubs cut back. You don't have to spend a ton of money and have a camera system. Just use some common sense and a little effort, and that'll go a long way. So thanks much for this program.
Anyone else? Feel free to unmute yourself and join in.
And even if it's something that's security related, but something we didn't talk about, or you just have a question about, feel free.
I just want to say thanks to Chris for a great presentation. And thanks to the officer from Oak Creek for what she does. I didn't catch your name, I guess, but thank you for what you do. And Paul Skidmore for your service to the city as an alder. And we sure appreciated it and your support of the police department and everything.
Well, I have a question. I'm Judy with Tamarack Trails, and Paul lives there too, of course. One of my questions with you, Chris, is with your role with the police department and with this that you're doing now, would you be able to do something like coming over to Tamarack Trails, 325 homes approximately, and yards and common space? And it's an older community, so we have a lot of things in place. However, new things are always happening in place, whether it's done by the landscape department or the ARB is revising their book of standards, or landscape is just buying new things for Tamarack, or an individual is. And I'm wondering if you do things like come out, take a look at things, and then make a presentation to Tamarack's board, committees, and actually through Zoom, perhaps even the residents.
Yeah, so good question. It's a loaded one, Judy.
They always are.
They always are. And you always get the honest answer out of me. So, that's one of the things we have to really sit back and look at as a department. I learned going to this training that there's a lot of departments out there that have actually a crime prevention team, whether that's one person, two people, three people, and this is all they do, for the police department, is they go out and they do assessments. They work with the city councils, they work with the mayor's office and trying to make changes. Again, there is a cry and it's out there. It's the elephant in the room to defund the police. So what we can do to kind of help with that. And again, CPTED's one of those things that I think is a kind of that happy medium. I think it really does work in deterring crime, makes the community safer as a whole. And realistically puts a lot of onus on property owners to do that, right? Sense of community. We are looking at, as a department, I've had a few meetings now with Captain Winters on kind of what we're going to do and how we're going to do that. Whether it's going to be something where the community person's able to call and be put kind of on a calendar, right? It may be 7-8 months out, because truthfully right now, I'm the only one that has the expertise in the department to do it. And I think it's just because I found a passion for it. And I really enjoy it and believe in it. Yeah, we're working on a process. Right now, we're kind of in a stage of review with MMSD, the Madison school districts. We're probably going to have to redo all 53 schools again. So I think, I'll be busy for a while. And Judy, but I have my third ACL surgery coming up. So I'll be out for a little bit again. Yeah, I think we're working on a process. I think I'm going to try to talk with the chief and talk with the powers to be to maybe create a prevention unit, even if it is just a team of one for now. I really do think it hits home on a lot of the topics that are kind of occurring in the city of Madison. And we don't like to take police officers off the street, but at the same time, I think there's a common goal here with the community and the police department. And this could really make a big difference. Plus, besides all that, you look at the common users, right? Who does the police department really reach out to? In general, the contacts we have are with people that need 911, right? That need us to come out. Those are the people we mainly interact with, right? On the kind of their bad day, their worst day, or their need day. This allows us to come out and meet with the average citizen that maybe doesn't use 911, has never had interaction with police, will never have interaction with police. And this is our opportunity as a department to provide a service to the community and have a positive interaction with that community member at that point in time. So when we talk about voting time and more officers and so on and so forth, that's more individuals that have had interactions with the police department. That's more individuals that can speak to the quality of a police department. So there's a lot of areas that this touches on that I think could really help both the community and us as a police department move forward. So answer your question in a long-winded way. We're working on it. It's something that we're going to have to figure out how we're going to navigate our resources to do all that. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Paul and I will remember about 20 years ago, we had a few police officers come to Tamarack Trails. And there was a situation that we were trying to defer some people from maybe climbing a fence to get around Tamarack. And at that time, they had a great presentation at that time. And I can remember some of the things they told us, Paul. I don't know if you remember things like, well, some plants that are very prickly. And so if there's any fence climbing even thought of, once they land in that, they won't try it again. And even at that time, they were talking a lot about motion detectors and things, but Paul, isn't it 20 years ago? And so much has happened since then.
yeah, I think the
I
principles are
remember that.
there. The principles are there. The technology's just changed a bunch.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Anyone else?
If you don't feel comfortable sharing or have a question you'd still like to be answered, just let Mike know. Mike has my email. And I can answer any questions via email as well to you if you feel more comfortable that way.
That's fine. Yeah, just send me a note if you want to get in touch with Chris, and I'll send you his email. Alrighty. Okay, well, I just want to thank you, Chris, for doing this for us. It's been a terrific presentation, a lot of great information. Remember, everyone, that this is being recorded and will be on our YouTube site in a couple of days, okay? And so you can access it there, share it with other people you think would be interested in it. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you all next month.
Have a great day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.